right, Catherine, do you want me to kick us off?
Go for it, Laura. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Good afternoon, all of our Flex coordinators, store directors, anybody else who may be joining us this afternoon. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Laura Seifert. I think most of you know me by now. I'm your program coordinator on the Flex program. This is going to be a very important walkthrough, so I'm happy that you're here with us on our new PIMS data collection platform in Salesforce. Many of you may already be familiar with Salesforce, either from reporting on your SOAR grant or reporting on your SHIP funding. I'm going to make a note here right at the top that I know this is a different data collection platform. Don't panic. The formatting of your PIMS report is exactly the same as it was before, the same checkboxes, the same domains, all the things. So this will just be a very helpful walkthrough for you. If you have any questions, come off mute, ask your questions, type things in the chat, let everybody know. We're here to help. And with that, I will kick it over to our presenters.
Thank you, Laura. I do want to say we are going to keep everybody on mute while the presentation is going on, but feel free to add any questions into the chat box. We have a few people from our team in there to help answer those questions as we go along, or if they can't be answered as we're going along, we'll answer them at the end during the Q&A segment. So welcome everyone to the HRSA Data Collection Platform webinar for the Medicare Hospital Flexibility or Flex grantees. My name is Catherine, and I'm going to be your facilitator today. As stated, we also have some project team members on the call as well that are going to be able to help out with questions and concerns throughout. And we also have obviously some of your program members on the call to help with any program specific questions. So today we're going to walk you through the new HRSA data collection platform. For some of you, completing the performance report may be brand new, but for others of you who have already had grants previously, this new system is going to replace the old EHB's PIMS, where you previously completed your performance report. And as Laura said, it is in Salesforce, so it's exciting to know that some of you have already accessed Salesforce before. So we will start by walking you through with screenshots of the system, and then we'll also be providing live demos throughout. So please note as we go through the live demos and the screenshots that this is test information we're going to be looking at. So it may be a little bit different than what you're actually going to see when you log into the system. So when you log into your account, you will only see information for your program and your grant. We're going to see a little bit more information than that today, but it's all just test information. And then at the end of our presentation today, we'll answer any questions that you may have. So once again, throughout the presentation, go ahead and throw those questions in the chat box, and we'll do our best to answer them throughout. So let's get started. On the agenda today, we're going to do a quick overview of the change and how it's going to be affecting all of you. Then we'll look at how to access the new HRSA data collection platform and how to navigate the home screen. Next, and probably most important to everybody on this call, we're going to go over how to complete and submit your performance reports. And like Laura said, this is literally just about a system change. So all of the information you're inputting, all of that stuff has not changed, but it's just going to be a different way to input the information. Then we'll show you how to view the approval history and your approved reports. Next, after that, we'll talk about how to respond to change requests from HRSA. And finally, we'll show you how to access your grantee raw data report. So let's start with an overview of the transition. So before we get into any of our system details, let's go over a little bit of background information on this transition. As of September 1st, which is in just a few weeks from now, you are going to be having your performance reports will be created in the Flex program grantee data in the new HRSA data collection system. So that's where all the Flex program grantees will be submitting their performance reports. This new system has an updated look and feel, and it's a bit easier to navigate. So it should give you a better experience while completing and submitting your performance reports than your previous performance reporting system. As a reminder, this only applies to performance reports created on or after September 1st, of this year, 2024. So that means that it's going to encompass the reporting period of September 1st, 2023 to August 31st, 2024. You will have a submission open date of September 1st, 2024, and your reporting due date will be October 30th, 2024. Now, let's look at how to access the system and navigate through the homepage. So starting on September 1st, like I said before, you're going to use this link up at the top of the page to access the new HRSA data collection platform. When your performance report is set up, you'll receive an email with a link to the system. While this is not part of the EHB, of HRSA's EHBs, the systems are connected so they can talk to themselves and each other. So you are going to still be using your EHB's login.gov email and password for your two-factor authentication to access the system. If you don't already have a login.gov account for the EHBs, then right now is a great time to go ahead and create that while you're waiting for your performance report to be set up. And if you have any questions on how to set up a login.gov account, or if you have any questions in general about login.gov or the EHBs, then you can access the HRSA wiki pages for help on walking you through the process. And we have those help pages linked throughout this presentation. We'll also be providing you with this presentation before the launch of the system on September 1st. So you can use both this video, this PowerPoint, and the wiki help pages to help walk you through your first time using the systems. So on the home page, you will find your username in the top right-hand side of the page. Up here, if you click on your username, you'll get the option to log out. Down here, you'll see at the top banner, there is an HSD Performance Reports tab. And at the bottom of the page, there's an HSD Performance Report widget. You can click either of these to access your performance reports. Next to those, to the right, is your Data Extracts tab. And your Data Extracts wiki widget is at the bottom of the page. And then our final link on these pages is the Help tab, or the Help widget at the bottom of the page. And you'll click that to access help pages. In the middle of the page is information about the background and the purpose for the performance reports. So if you guys are interested, it's also got a link to the contact center if you need specific help there. Now that you know how to access and navigate the system, let's look at how to complete and submit your performance reports. So after you select the HSD performance report from the top navigation bar or from the widget at the bottom of the homepage, you will see a list of the performance reports that are assigned to you. The list displays the tracking ID, the submission status, if applicable, your submission name, grant number, program name, reporting period, and the status of the report itself. If you click on the tracking ID, you can open the performance report. On the performance reports page, you will select a different list view to find the reports that you need in different statuses. So you do that right here where it says recently viewed. The page defaults to recently viewed, but you can click the down arrow next to recently viewed to select a different list view. You can also change the default for your list view by clicking the pin icon next to the arrow. You can also use the search box to search for a specific performance report by searching either its ID or its status. If you click on the down arrow next to recently viewed, you can view the approval reports list view, which displays reports that the HRSA project officer has approved and are in approved status. You can also select change requested reports, the list view that displays reports that the HRSA PO has returned for updates. They're in change requested status and they must be updated and resubmitted. Next on the list is the in progress reports list view. This one shows reports that have not been started or are in progress and have not yet been submitted. These not started, or in progress status. Below that is our default right now, our recently viewed list view, which displays reports that you have recently accessed. And then last but not least is the submitted reports list view at the bottom of the list. And this shows any reports that have been submitted to HRSA for review, but have not been approved or change requested yet. After opening the performance report, you can view the tracking ID for your grant and the performance report, as well as information about a submitted date or a review status. So in this example, this report has not yet been started, so there's not a submission date yet, but you can see that the review status is not started. In the grantee data entry section, you can see the data. You can see the status for each form. So we have not started, which is indicated by a red circle. In progress, which is indicated by an orange clock face. And complete, which is indicated by a white check mark in a green circle. Please note that the statuses can be different for each form versus the performance report as a whole. So if you started these, if you finished all of your forms, but you had not yet submitted them, they wouldn't be in submitted status yet, they'd still be in progress, even though these are all complete. Also note that if you're having trouble seeing the status of any form, so these bubbles over here, these circles are not showing up for you, you can refresh your page, or you can go back to your HSD performance reports page and then try to open the report again. You can select view to the right of each form to see a read-only view of the form, or you can select start if the form is not yet started, or edit if the form is in progress to work on the report itself. At the bottom, you'll see in the right-hand corner, you'll see a generate PDF button. You can click this button to view a PDF version of your entire report. So you can click that button before you even started the report to print yourself off a clean version if you'd like to have a paper copy to make notes on, or you can print it off at the end to save a copy for your records of what you submitted. At the top of the page, when the report is ready to be submitted for approval, then you will see a submit for approval button. Right now, this is a not started report, so we don't have that button, but I'll show you later in the demo what that looks like. And then once you've submitted, you can track your approval history down at the bottom of the page in the approval history section. Please note at this time, another important reminder, before you submit your performance report for approval, you must complete all forms. Once you have submitted your performance report for approval, unless it is change requested by your HRSA PO, you will not be able to edit the report. So while it is being reviewed by HRSA, you won't have an editing capability. So make sure that you're always triple checking everything that you submit over to HRSA prior to submitting. So after we click start or edit to work on our form, the first page that we're going to come to is the public BERT statement. You want to read through this statement and then click next to continue to the data entry fields. Throughout the form, you can track your progress by using the steps in the right-hand corner, top right-hand corner of the page. So as you're completing the steps, blue is the step that you're on, gray is a step that you haven't gotten to yet, and then green will be the color of the step once you've completed it. So we'll go ahead and we'll click next, and we'll go to the first form within the form. As you work through the forms, be sure to complete all required fields as indicated with an asterisk before them. You can compare data to previous reporting periods if applicable. If an incorrect data type is entered, a required field is left blank, or a dependent field does not match, you will receive an error message to correct that data. So in this example, we have entered a partial number rather than a whole number. So we would need to perhaps round up this figure in order to alleviate this message. And you can use a whole number up to 10 digits in most fields. Some fields may become required based on what you enter in dependent fields. So if you enter data in a value field, the corresponding specify field may become required. At the bottom of the form, there is an add comments section. So if you need to add any comments to send to your HRSA PO, or you wish to attach any files, you can do so here. Both of these fields are optional, so they are not required. And these comments and attachments will follow you through the steps of each form. Please note that any files that you attach here will not be included in the generated PDFs. So they will only be available here as file attachments. They will not be able to be printed off in that larger report. After completing the data on the step, click Next at the bottom of the page to save your data and move to the next step. So this is another really important reminder here. The system does not autosave, so make sure that you are always clicking Next at the bottom of the page to save the data on that page. If you click Previous or you go back to the main screen before clicking Next, then your data will not save. So another thing that kind of goes hand in hand with this reminder is that the system also has a 15-minute inactivity limit. So if you are stepping away from your computer to go grab a drink, or you have to answer a phone call, make sure that anytime you might stray away from this page for more than 15 minutes, you're saving your work by clicking the next button. We'll go ahead and we'll click Next, and then we'll talk a little bit about Form 0. So this is an example of one of the different page types you will see within the HRSA data collection platform. On Form 0, you can select optional applicable options. So these selections may impact later on forms within the system. So if you select an optional option here on this page, then it turns on a form selection later on in the process. So if you notice that a form that is supposed to be turned on later on is not available to you, you would come back to the selection page and you'd select that form there. Our next example of a question format is the activity category selection. So this one is on Form 1 in the core measures section. And this one you can select CAHs that are participated or improved in each of the categories. So you would click the box or boxes next to the CHSs that were either participated on or participated and improved on. In order to select improved, the box for that CAH must also be selected under participation. And then at the bottom of that page, you'll see that it auto-calculates based on the selections that you made. So in this example, we selected 24 different participation CAHs, and we selected 3 improvement CAHs. Once you are done filling out these options, then you would click Save at the bottom, and then you can click Next. So if you click Next before you click Save, you will receive an error message letting you know that you did not save your selections. Our last example of question type is for Form 7, Flex Spending. And in this one, you would complete all of the required fields for your spending summary section. And then at the bottom, the actual program spending for current report period calculation will auto-populate based on the information entered above. The information calculated in the actual program spending for current report period is going to come in really handy. So On page 6 of the same form is the total flex funding's utilization calculation. That calculation must match this calculation. However, this calculation, the actual program spending for current period report period, is only available on page 1. So make sure that you make note of what this amount is, or you can go back to this page when you get to page 6 if you need to reference it. So once all of the required data is entered on the field status will update to completed. You can see that here on the left-hand side with our white check in a green circle. Once all of the forms have been completed, then you are ready to submit the report to HRSA for review. So we can see that here all of our forms are complete in the grantee data entry section, and now that submit for review button has appeared. Once you hit the submit for review button, then you will be given the option to add any more optional comments that you would like to send to your HRSA PO. So you can fill out that pop-out window and then click submit. It is optional, so you don't have to include any comments, but feel free to. And then your report status will update to submitted, and you won't be able to edit that submitted report until your HRSA PO is done looking at it and request changes. So here you can see that it moved to the submitted status, and it'll be in the submitted list view. Now let's take a look at how to check on the approval status of your report. So after submitting your report, you can track the progress through the approval history section at the bottom of the page. Here we can see that there's just one comment, an optional comment that the submitter left on this report. As your HRSA PO makes decisions about your report, you can see if it is approved or if changes were requested. You can also see all the comments for each change of status if that's applicable. And then down here, you can also view full comments. So if you have any comments that extend past this character limit here, you can change your view option to wrap text to view full comments. Once your report has been approved by HRSA, then the status will change to approved, and it'll be listed under your approved reports list view. But what happens if HRSA requests updates to the report while they're reviewing it? Let's take a look. If HRSA sends back the report for updates, you'll receive an email notification with the comments that your PO added about the requested change. The performance report status will then change to change requested, and it will be viewable under the change requested reports list view. You can click on the tracking ID to open the report to make changes. When you open the performance report, in the approval history section, you will see the comment that was emailed to you as well, that your HRSA PO added requested changes. On the right side of the page, you can down here to view the comment rather than the allowed window. And then you can also open your performance reports. You can make changes in the forms by clicking edit, and then you can resubmit the report once all changes have been made. And once again, once you submit your report for review, you will not be able to edit it. So make sure that you're addressing everything in your PO's comments to make sure that it doesn't get kicked back to you with more changes requested. Okay, so now that we've walked through the system through pictures, let's go ahead and do a system demo of our live test system. So when you log in to the system, you will be greeted with this login information here, and you will click I agree to agree to the statement and then click next. Then you'll be able to access by clicking finish. System will then take you to the same screen that we saw in the webinar slides. Up here at the top corner, where in the top right corner where you have your name, you will be able to click that to have the option to log out or to return home. In the banner below, you can click the home icon to return home at any time, and that'll take you back to this page here. You can also click the HSD performance reports to view your performance reports. And then if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, that same option is available in a widget. Next to performance reports is the data extracts widget. And same thing at the top banner. And the next option is data extracts. And then finally in the banner and the widgets, your last option is the help tab. So we'll go ahead and we'll click the help widget at the bottom of the page, and then it'll take us to our help page. This will offer, once again, this is a test system, you guys, so everything isn't necessarily in here yet, but it will be in your live system. You'll have user guides, so you'll scroll down to your HSD help section, and then your user guide will be listed here. There's also an FAQs page that will take you to frequently asked questions. If we scroll back up to the top of the page, go ahead and click HSD performance reports. So here we are at our recently viewed default list view. If we want to change the list view, we can click the down arrow next to recently viewed and select a different list view option. So let's narrow it down to in progress reports. And we can scroll to see all of our in progress reports. You guys will not have this many progress reports. I promise you, you'll only have ones that are applicable to your grant and your program. So don't worry, don't be scared that you're going to log in and get 8 in progress reports with half of them past due. I promise that this is just test data. If you wanted to, you could also change the default list view by clicking the pin right next to that down arrow. And then we can go ahead and open a performance report. I'm going to go ahead and search for the performance report that I'm looking for because I've got quite a few on this list. And then I'll click enter and I'm able to find just that one performance report with that tracking ID matching the number that I put up here in the search field. We'll go ahead and we'll open that report by using the tracking ID. And here we can see that this report, by clicking this down arrow for more of the grant report details, we can see the grant number, the current reporting period, our reporting due date, our review status, which is not started for this report, and then our submitted date, which is blank because it hasn't been submitted yet. If we scroll down a little bit more, we can see the grantee data entry forms. So each of these is listed as being not started. And just as a reminder, I know I mentioned it during the slides, but if you're having any trouble viewing any of these statuses for your forms, you can refresh your page and they should appear. If they still don't appear, you can go back to your HSD performance reports and then re-access the forms there. And then we could go ahead and we could either click view to view a read-only copy of each form or click start to start that form. If we scroll down a little bit further, we're going to get that generate PDF option. And I mentioned that you may want to generate a PDF prior to filling out any of your forms. That would give you a blank version of all forms. And that way you could make notes, fill them out on paper before you fill them out in the system, whatever works best for you. And then at the very bottom of the page is going to be our approval history section. And the approval history section doesn't have anything in it right now because it hasn't gone through any sort of approval. But we'll go ahead and we'll go back to our HSD performance reports to see a few examples of those forms that we talked about a little bit earlier. So in our recently viewed segment, we're going to search again for a different performance report because I have so many. And then we can find that we have our tracking ID here again. Our submission status for this one is on track. Our submission name will be listed. Grant number will be here. The Flex program will be our program name, reporting period, and then our status. For this one, it's going to be in progress. For the previous one, it was not started. So we'll click our tracking ID to go ahead and access this form. If we scroll down this report, we can see that quite a few of these pages have already been updated. But we're going to go ahead and click edit on form 0 to take a look at what you guys will see the first time you start a form. So by clicking edit, we're going to go to that public burden statement first. And we can scroll to the public burden statement, make sure that you're reviewing that, and then we click next. As you can see up here, it tells us where we are in the steps. So in the right-hand corner, we're going to see that we're on the public burden statement step. And the next step would be the Flex selection page. So let's go ahead to that one by clicking next. On the Flex selection page, you'll go ahead and be able to select those optional forms that we talked about a little bit earlier. So these are the optional forms can be clicked off here. If you select one that is incorrect, you can click it off as well in the box next to it. So a check mark in the box means that it's selected. No check mark in the box means that it's not selected. And we can see here that we have a few that we can't check or uncheck. Those are your required forms. So they are not optional. So we'll leave those as is. Once we've selected all of our optionals, then we'll go ahead and click next to take a look at the forms themselves. And we see that form 1 is requiring editing because we selected off a selection on that page that we hadn't selected before. So we'll go ahead and click edit. And now we have access to this first page of this form. So it's the core patient safety / inpatient measures. We'll go ahead and select our participation CAHs and any improvement CAHs we may have. And it'll tell you at the bottom of the selection page the total that you've selected. So for participation, we've selected 3. For improvement, we've selected 1. And we'll click yes. We'll click save before we click next. That way we can proceed past the selection page. Here we have that optional comment box. So if we wanted to make a comment to our PO, we can add up to 5,000 characters here. Below that is the file attachments. That's also optional. So you could click upload files and then select a file attachment to add to your report. Once again, just as a reminder, the file attachments will not print on generated PDFs. So they are attached to your report, but they would not show up if you tried to generate a PDF. If we add a comment here, we'll say, this is my comment. Then that optional comment is going to follow you through this form. So if we click next, we'll go to our next step, which is core patient engagement measures, and we'll be able to scroll to the bottom and see that it has kept our comment. This is my comment. Core patient measure engagement was already filled out, so we'll click next. This core care transition measures was not selected on the selection page, so you do not have the option to complete the selections here because you don't need to. So we'll click next. And then the rest of these forms have already been filled out. So we'll just zoom through them so you guys can see the status change from in progress to complete. And here we have that error again that I talked about, where some of the pages are not showing the status correctly. So we'll go ahead and we'll click refresh. I'm refreshing it, changed it to those check marks. You can also kind of tell the status based off of whether these are start or edit buttons. That will at least let you know whether it was not started, would be a start button. So that would correspond with this red circle. And then in progress and complete both have edit buttons next to them. So the last form that we're going to take a look at on this page is Form 7, Flex Spending. And I'll go ahead and click Edit. As we discussed earlier, when you enter information into the flex spending required fields, it's going to auto-calculate the number down here next to actual program spending for current report period. This number is really important because it needs to match this CAH designation field. So that is also an auto-generated calculation based on the fields that you will complete from CAH quality improvements through rural EMS improvements. So the sums entered in these four will then auto-calculate on the CAH designation page, and they must match the number here. So we have 19 on this page next to actual program spending for current report period, and we'll tab over to the next field. This one's not filled out, so we'll go ahead and we'll put a 1 there and click next. These are all required and they all have to be whole numbers. So if you click, if you enter a partial number or if you leave them blank, then you're going to get an error message. So this one is error required. The previous was error allows whole numbers up to 10 digits. So any field that's outlined in red is an error message that needs to be fixed in order to proceed. You will not be able to proceed forward in your form unless the errors are addressed. So a lot of your forms are going to have required fields, and like we mentioned before, the only way to save data is by clicking next. So you are able to put in, let's call it temp data into a field and come back to that field to proceed, but you want to make sure that you're entering something in the field in order to proceed. You can enter 0 if you do not have anything in that category. So if you had no flex funds utilized towards the activity category of statewide operation and financial needs assessment required annually, you would put $0 amount, and then you would be able to proceed. We're going to go ahead and we're going to change that back to 1. And then we're going to click next again. And all of these should be filled out properly. So we'll click next one more time. Oh, we're off by $1. So if everybody remembers, in our award information field, our auto-calculated field, the number to match was 19 and we're at 18. So you would not be able to save this page based off of this calculation. This form would show as being incomplete if you left this page now. So we would have to go back and fix our entered amounts in the field that is incorrect. It's basically just double checking everything that you've entered to make sure that your calculations add up correctly. So let's say that we actually spent $2 on statewide rural EMS needs assessment and action planning instead of 1. If we then clicked next, we would get our $19 in total flex funds utilized, and we would be able to proceed and save our form. Now we can see, now that we're back on the report main page, that all of our forms are complete, and we now have the option to submit for review. So we would make sure before we submit for review, because we will no longer have the editing ability, once we submit for review, that all of our forms are correct, all of the information in it is accurate. So we would click submit for review. Once we've made that review, we can enter an optional comment in this box and then send this over to our HRSA PO. Let's go ahead and look at what a submitted report looks like in the submitted report list view. So now that we're back on the HSD performance reports page, we can change our list view to submitted reports. Now we're down to only 3 as opposed to our recently viewed, which was 18, I believe. So we'll go ahead and we'll search for, well, in this one, I don't have to search, it's our first option. A 784 is the tracking ID that we were looking for. So I'll go ahead and click that tracking ID to open the submitted performance report. If you scroll down to your data entry, your grantee data entry section, you'll see that where we used to have start or edit buttons, we no longer have those options. That's because this report is in submitted status. So we can't edit any of the fields unless it gets sent back to us as being change requested. So that's why you want to make sure that you double and triple check your work before submitting it. But we still have access to the actual information entered through our read-only view. So if I click view here, I can view a read-only version of each of the forms. This is our public burden statement that we accepted. And then here is our flex selection page. And as you can see, all of the boxes are now grayed out like they were for the required fields. Now they're all grayed out with your options that you selected. So you can't change them here because we're in submitted status. If I click next, then we can go scroll down to the bottom of the page and view our approval history. So here, this report was submitted for approval on 7/31. And the submission comment was submit 1. If this was a longer comment and we weren't able to see it, then we could click the down arrow next to comments. And we could change the view from clip text to wrap text. And wrap text would then wrap all of the text in that field, so we'd be able to read it. Now we'll go back to our performance reports page and we will change our list view one more time to be a change requested report. Luckily on this view, we only have one. So we'll go ahead and we'll open our change requested report. Just like before, we have the option to edit our forms over here. Next to each form is that edit button with the little pencil instead of just our view with a little eyeball. And that means that you can edit any of these forms as you need to. Under approval history at the bottom of the page, we could open that up and we could see that the status is now change requested and that there was a comment added by, in your case, a PO, in my case, user 1721, etc. That this was just done for the test demo, but they would leave information here, your PO would leave information in this comment, letting you know which of the forms that needed to be addressed and updated. Once again, you will know when a report goes from submitted to change status, change requested status, because you'll receive an email notification with any information about that change in status. Once you refilled out your full report, made any changes that needed to be made, you would go back up to the top of the report and you would click submit for review in the right-hand corner. And then you'll get that same optional comment box and you can fill that out with any comments. So since this is a change request, we might write back to our HRSA PO what we changed for them to address. And then click submit and that goes back to the submitted status. So that was our demo of the test system for the logging in homepage and completing and submitting reports. Now let's go back to our webinar slides and we'll go over how to find and view your grantee raw data report. So let's take a look at your grantee raw data report. From the navigation bar, to access your grantee data report, you're going to click the Data Extracts tab at the top of your navigation bar or at the bottom from the widget on your homepage. The page is going to automatically default to recent view, but if it's the first time that you're opening your data extracts, you won't have anything listed under recently viewed in case you haven't recently viewed anything. So instead, you'll select all reports from the left-hand side menu to view all reports that are applicable to your role. Then from here, you can select your grantee raw data report to open the report, or you could select run to extract the report. This also gives you a little bit more information about the report, what folder it can be found in. So you could look over here for that folder, who it was created by, and who created it on what date. Once we're inside the report, by clicking either the report name or run to open the report, you'll be able to view the report. You can use the scroll bottom bar at the bottom of the page to view all the different data within the report. And you can use the scroll bar at the right of the page to look at different fields within the report. You can also select the facility name to get facility details. Ooh, sorry guys, I clicked that a little bit too quickly. So up in the right-hand corner of the report itself, you'll get an extract option. And if you proceed forward with extracting, you can download a version of the report. So once you've clicked export, then you can either select a formatted report or a details only report and then click export. For the details only view, you have a variety of different formatting and encoding options. So you would select which ones you wanted and then select export. The formatted report only comes in one format, that's an XLSX format, but the details only has a wider variety. So let's go ahead and do a demo of accessing your grantee raw data report. Back here in our test site, we can go back to the home page if we want, and we can scroll to the bottom to select data extracts from the widget, or from any page, we can select data extracts from the navigation bar. Once we've selected data extracts, it's going to bring us to our recent view. That is the default view for the data extracts page. But if you do not see your grantee raw data report, you can click all reports and it'll show up there. You can access the grantee raw data report by clicking the report name, or scroll over if necessary and click the drop down arrow. That'll give you the option to run or straight export the report from here. So we'll go ahead and we'll select run. It'll give us a view of the report itself. Like I said earlier, you can scroll over using the bottom scroll bar to view the many different columns of information that you might need to access, or you can use your internal scroll bar on the right side of your screen to scroll through the different rows of the report. And then you would click the export option in the top right corner to download a copy of the report if you wish to do so. So we'll go ahead and we'll click export. And we're going to be given the exporting options of either a formatted report, which will automatically be downloaded as an XLSX, or you will get a details only option, which allows you to change the formatting. So you can either have an XLSX, XLS, or a CSV. And then encoding has a wide variety of options depending on what you're looking for. So we'll go ahead and we'll click export. And that will give us a that'll give us a details only option of the report. It looks like there's an issue viewing the report this way for me, but there won't be for you guys. It's probably just a test data information issue. So that is accessing the grantee raw data report. So pretty much that's it that we're going to go over today, except for a few important reminders before we get to your questions. Once again, the data does not save within the system, so be sure to click the next button on every page to save your work. And in conjunction with that, make sure that if you have a save button within any page, that you're clicking that save button before clicking next, so you can proceed to the next page. Another reminder is that the system will time out after 5 minutes of inactivity, and you will lose any data that was not saved. So if you have to jump on a meeting, if you have to grab some lunch, make sure that you are clicking that next button on any page where you want to save the data. Required fields are going to be indicated by an asterisk next to the field. And if you do not fill out those fields when you click the next button, you will get an error message within that field telling you that it is a required field. After you submit your performance report, you cannot make edits unless your PO request changes. So make sure that you are double, triple checking your work, and then anything that might come up later in your brain pop up as an edit that you need to make sure that you're reviewing that information enough so that you catch those before submitting them to your PO. After your HRSA PO request changes, you must resubmit your report for the PO to review it. So editing the forms is not enough for your PO to know that your report has been changed. You need to click submit to resubmit that report. So make sure that you guys are doing that so that your PO can review your changes within a timely manner. Our last subject that we're going to talk about before I hand it over for questions is that we have some helpful resources available to you. So you will find a step-by-step user guide and frequently asked questions from the help tab that we went over today. But if you have any questions or issues logging into the system, please contact the login.gov customer support team. If you have any questions related specifically to your performance report, please contact the HRSA support team or your HRSA PO directly. And then you can also reach out to your PO for questions about your grant or the data that needs to be entered into the performance report. Okay, well, I think that wraps it up for my presentation. So I'm going to open the floor up to any questions. So feel free to unmute yourself at this time to ask any particular questions you might have.
Catherine, we've got a couple of pretty important questions in the chat that I want to make sure we talk through so everyone can hear the answers.
Go for it.
So one of these ones, it was an issue on the SHIP data collection platform where when the project officer would send back the report for changes, the automatic email notifications were not working. Has that been resolved for this?
Hey, Laura, it's Sudhanshu here. Yes, we noticed that a question in the chat, and it looks like that was happening in production. So we are contacting other vendor who takes care of the production, and then we can circle back on that.
Okay, so in the meantime, when this launches, if we don't have an update yet, us project officers can just send an email on the outside to the grantee that says, hey, check to see if you've gotten this.
Yes, you can send that and we'll get you the response before the release itself.
Okay, perfect. And one of the important questions is asking whether or not the login for this, for Flex, will have the same login as they all do for the SHIP platform. And since it is all the same login as EHBs, the answer is yes, correct?
Probably
Yes.
for that one. Oh, sorry, somebody.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Okay, yeah, so they need to log in through the login.gov, Laura. And that will be same for SHIP and Flex.
Okay, perfect. And one question to make sure folks know about this came from one person directly, but this might affect a few people, is if a change request is submitted, who gets the notification? Is it everyone who has access to the data collection platform? So if person A submitted the report, but then they go out of the office, does everyone else get the notification a change was submitted?
Prajakta, do you want to take that question? Who gets the notification for the change
Yes.
request?
So the change request email, if a PD grantee has submitted the report, that will be the user who will be receiving the email. So the emails have been set up in this way that the last person who made changes to the performance report, for example, it was a non-PD grantee, then the non-PD grantee would receive that email along with the PD grantee and the PO as well. So it really depends on who's the last person who is submitting the report. So if it's like I mentioned in the chat, like if it is a PD grantee, then the PD and PO will receive. If it's a non-PD grantee, then non-PD grantee, PD and PO will receive the change request email.
Thank you, Prajakta. So the answer I would say for all of the grantees is that if you submit something and you know you'll be out of the office, to let whoever your backup know, let someone else that has access to the system know that you'll be out. And then we as project officers can email them and say, hey, we sent this back. Can you address this, et cetera, so that the emails don't get lost in the shuffle. There is a comment here in the chat that it looks like it's still occurring here where, let me make sure I read this right. There have been problems with downloading PDFs of the reports. There's a pop-up screen that requests a username and password to log in, even though they are already logged in. And there's a screenshot in the chat. Can we take that and go look into what the problem might be?
We can look at it, Laura.
Okay, thank you so much. I think I have caught all the questions unless I've missed one. Can everyone come off mute right now if they have more questions? Do they have that capability, Catherine?
Yes, they should have that capability.
Okay. Are there any other questions that folks have? You are able to come off mute at this point.
Looks like-
Oh, sorry, go
sorry.
ahead, Scott.
Oh yeah, no, just a quick question. I noticed that when I came in that I had for EHB, I have different logins for the SOAR and for the SOAR grant and for the SHIP and Flex grants. But I noticed that I see all of the SOAR performance reports, even though I used the Flex login. So is that the case? Is I'm going to be able to see all the reports regardless of by login?
Hey, sorry, Scott. When you say different login, meaning you are using
Well, I'm
XML,
only
right?
okay. So the thing is on EHB, I'm only allowed to use one email per grant. Or anyway, somehow the SOAR is different from the Flex in the organizational structure. I'm not exactly sure, so I have to use two different emails. So I use one email basically for my SHIP and Flex, which are under one thing, and then SOAR is under something else. So for when I did the login.gov, I had to create two different logins for that in order to get in. But I just noticed that I just used my Flex one and I saw all the SOAR performance reports on there.
So I assume that could be because earlier the Flex was still in EHB and the SOAR and SHIP got moved to data collection platform, but now everything is under data collection platform.
No, Sudhanshu, what Scott is saying is that to get into EHB, like into login.gov, one login for SOAR and one login for Flex and SHIP. And so I guess the point, I think the question, Scott, if I'm getting this wrong, please jump in and correct me, is that since Scott, for example, is one grantee who will have access and be submitting all 3 reports for Flex, Ship, and SOAR, he will be able to see all of them in this data collection platform, correct? It's
Correct.
not separated
Yes.
out?
Yes, yes, he should be able to see all his grants in data collection platform.
But I
Okay,
won't
so
have,
Scott, it's not an error.
okay, so I'm not gonna have to create 2 different logins. Or I don't need 2 different logins for the like I do in EHB.
No, no, no.
Okay.
There was one more question that came in the chat. Will we receive an email notification if our report is accepted or approved?
Again, Prajakta, back to you. Can you check in the email notification template if what emails are going for?
I'm checking that, yes. No, the only emails which we have is that if you have, if the due date is passed for your performance report, then you'll get a reminder email. If the report has been assigned back to the grantees for change request, then you'll get that. If a report is submitted, then the POs and the grantees would receive an email. So these are the emails which get sent. You wouldn't get an email for if the report is approved.
Projecta, can you and I have a conversation maybe tomorrow about the possibility of adding that email?
Sure, sure, Laura. Yes, we
Thank
can.
you.
Are there any other questions? Anybody else would like to come off mute or feel free to put them in the help box, chat box. These have been great questions, you guys. Really stuff to think about for the ones that we didn't have answers for, and help clear up some confusion before the launch day.
And I will say is
I
that
have
if
one, I can't log out.
you can't log out.
You can't.
It won't
Is
let
it
me
not-
log out. And I've actually closed I mean, I haven't closed the browser all the way, but I've closed the window. All it does, it goes through the process of logging me out. And then it dumps me back into basically to the warning, basically the privacy policy thing. And if I hit, if I hit the I agree thing, and next, it just puts me right back in, and right at the top, it says log out, and I keep trying to hit it. I just end up in this cycle, and I've tried closing the window and reopening the site, and it just puts me right back into the I'm logged in.
Interesting.
Because I wanted to check the other email.
That makes total sense.
And I will say, as anybody else is thinking about further questions, I am going to be sending a go live email when this starts on September 1st. It might go on September 3rd, just because the 1st is a Sunday and the 2nd is Labor Day. So it will probably go on Tuesday the 3rd with the web address, and I will attach the slides again. I'll attach the user guide, all of those things to make sure that it's in an email for you. And I did see a question in the chat about whether or not, the instruction and guidance on what improved means. It's all the same meanings as it was before, and I have all of that information that we had in our previous user guides. So I'll make sure to copy that over and include that in my email to everyone.
And I was able to successfully log out after I closed the browser completely. I quit. I mean, I had to quit the browser and then log back in.
Glad to hear that that was a solution and not that you had to quit in general.
Yeah, shut down the.
Are you guys going to be sending out the webinar
Yes, Tiffany,
recording
I'll send it
and the
out.
links? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And yeah, both emails work. I see all the reports.
Maybe that's why I wouldn't let you log out, Scott, because I knew you
Well-
already had all the information you needed.
Yeah. But yeah, for those, I mean, I don't know if anyone else is in the same situation I am, that you have to run that for EHB. You have to have two different accounts, but yeah, it seems like I get all the information from either from both my login.coms or login.govs.
Last call for any other questions? Anything else anybody wasn't sure about or would like to see again, would like clarification on?
If anyone has questions after this, please send me an email and I can get everything over to our developers to get some answers back for you before we go live.
Okay, well, if there are no further questions, then I want to give you guys back a little bit of time in your day. I want to thank everybody who came today and stuck around till the very end. Thank you so much. We really appreciate having you here, and I hope that the launch goes smoothly and you guys get all of your reports in by that due date. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.